afternoon here at Culture House. So please welcome to the chairs. There will be more opportunities to continue the conversations around the tables. The artists are still here. There will be breaks. And we are here until 5 o'clock, so you will have all the opportunity to talk to artists and to other people here in the room. But now welcome to the chairs, please, so that we can open the event. Just wait a couple of minutes. Okay, so welcome to the Stockholm Lab, Turning the Tide Stockholm Lab. This is the project. I am delighted to see you here today, not only as your host, but also as a CEO of Intercult. My name is Ivona Price. Intercult, very shortly, is an independent production at the Resource Center for intercultural and international projects placed here in Stockholm, in Södermalm. We have an international, European, and beyond network of people working with us, and most of those people from that network are gathered here today. Intercult is 4 people today, and everybody is here, and we have the orange straps. So Elizabeth Papageorgiou, maybe you can stand to show yourself, the digital creator and the project leader of this project. Hanna Granlund, project manager for an e-art project with sustainable materials for art. Karin Johansson, there is Karin, working with digital on stage, digital tools for performing arts. You can see that the subjects we are touching in our work are quite broad. And we have also Jeanne, which is in the reception, and Martina doing the social media here. So if somebody doesn't want to be in the pictures, we are taking quite a lot of both videos and pictures. Just tell Martina that you don't want to be in the pictures and she will avoid you. So what we do, it's a hub. Intercult is a hub for a local, international and intercultural culture exchanges, and we are leaders of collaborative culture projects, networks, and we are also sharing our experience gained in those collaborations in Sweden and in Europe. And the subjects are many. It's climate questions, it's waterfronts, it's cultural heritage, it's also eco-friendly creative methodologies like digital tools for performing arts, which I mentioned. We are arranging educational activities, and we are also arranging artistic encounters. So this 3-day event, or 4-day, because we actually started with a gathering of River Cities Network, a pan-European network, which Intercult is a proud member of. We started, this international gathering is a part of Turning the Tide project, which is co-funded by Creative Europe. It's a European fund for culture. We know all about it, so if somebody wants to get more information, please talk to one of us. We are also working with educational activities like Urban Labs, which is a format of this event, well known for researchers all over the world and also used for cultural purposes. So now today we are gathered here in the Foyer 3, or Foyer 3, at the Culture House, a landmark in Stockholm, which most of you, I hope, know. And this is the heart of Stockholm, the culture heart of Stockholm. gathering is focused today on water, cities, and sustainability, especially on Stockholm's waterfront and climate. And of course, we have all the artists here. So for you, and I see that most of you joined us earlier. Today, we have already experienced the power of artistic vision through this art fair and the exhibition where artists are showcasing the works they did during the course of the project. We have 14 artists here today, and I can mention one by one. It's Tina Eskilsson with the Turning the Tide poster, which is the drop is created by Tina in the project. It was shown during the Culture Festival in Stockholm, and we are now using it as a logo in a way of our project here in Stockholm. It's ongoing realities from that side. Johan Bandholz, I think that he already left, but it has been a dance exhibition. Ludmila Kristeva, the wall with diving equipment. Ludmila is here, I hope. No, she has been here. Froso Papadimitriou. Froso is here. Your table is over here with the stories of the children, speaking about the fire in the island of Evia in Greece. Jenny Marketou. Jenny has a table over there with the red flag. A Greek artist also working in New York. Katarzyna Piórek, of Polish origin, working here in Sweden with short films. Kamila Homic over there with the fruits, biodiversity of Seestadt in Vienna. Gisela Stigler. Gisela did a project of a sculpture which is only a vision. Up till now, we will see. But this is a sculpture which could be placed in the waters of Slussen as a landmark, very visible landmark, and you can see her proposition on the pictures over there. We also have Cecilia Pschickling. Cecilia is sitting there showing her work from Stockholm, connected to also the waterfront and the climate questions. Turning the Tide is 36, not 60, unfortunately, 36 months project with Intercult as a proud lead partner. We have partners from 6 or 5 different countries. Sweden is the 6th one. It's Wiener Bildung Academy from Vienna in Austria, today working with the technology. So Bernd, leading the project in Vienna, is sitting over there. We have Urban Cultural Institute from Gdańsk, Poland, Natalia. Sorry, I cannot see everybody here, but there is Natalia. We have Artit, Greece, with Valia Lamani sitting somewhere here also. Here, there is Valia. Dear Hunter from Netherlands, making our maps, Malise and Remy. We also collaborate with Fable Vision in Scotland. Liz Gardiner is here, coming from Glasgow. And also with the Pan-European River Cities Network, which I already mentioned, and most of us are members of that network. We already supported 42 artists, 42 all over Europe, out of which 10 in Sweden. We are trying to collaborate with big events like Project Slussen, the opening of the area outside of the old town, and together with our artists and also with the Stockholm Culture Festival. So we have artistic residencies, we have cartopological maps, we've been to Glasgow for a climate summit, we are working with urban labs as educational methodology and meeting people, and we work generally with transdisciplinary approaches. So what is the goal for today. Today, we want to address the practical existential challenges that coastal cities face in the context of climate change. And one of those cities is, of course, Stockholm. In Stockholm, we have Lake Mälaren, which everybody knows. We have also the Baltic Sea. The Lake Mälaren is 200 kilometers long, and it ends in a way in Stockholm. And we have a lock in Slussen, the new lock, which was opened in June, I think. And that lock is going to last another 80, 100 years. It's being exchanged from time to time. So we can say that the drinking water of Stockholm, which is being regulated or taken from the Lake Mälaren, and it's regulated in Slussen, will be saved until well, in another 80-100 years. And what will happen then? I don't think that anybody thinks about it. The lock is new, so we feel that we are done for now. To achieve the goal of building adaptive cities like the Stockholm or Gdańsk or Vienna or other cities we are working with, we must rely on interdisciplinary collaboration. So we work with artists, we work with experts, and we are trying to find out what is the next step in not planning, but in action. So what are the most powerful tools to influence change while preserving the integrity of people working with us, which are mainly artists? Our agenda, behind me, you just see the film about our activities, our artistic encounters here in Stockholm, which has been taking place during the last 2 years. So what do we do today? We begin immediately with a dive into Stockholm's strategies for resilient urban flood planning, presented by Jonas Althage. Jonas is a strategist for urban flood management with the city of Stockholm. Then we will invite Emma Stenström. Emma is associate professor at Stockholm School of Economics, and she will lead us through bubble hopping. We will then experience the strong combination of creativity and activism during Marie-André Robitaille's presentation and interactive performance, which you are all invited to join. The performance will be actually outside. The name of the performance is Semaphores as an Act of Change. The afternoon features a roundtable discussion building resilient waterfront cities. This high-level discussion will be led by Thomas Rebermark, director of Swedish Waterhouse at CV, Swedish Water Institute, and features experts such as Luigia Brandi-Marte, associate professor at KTH. This is the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. Marta Bollmark, she's a CEO and partner at Gaia Architecture, the architecture office here in Stockholm as well. And Magnus Arnell, the program manager of Waterwise Societies. And finally, we have a session where we facilitate the blending of perspectives in a conversation. And artists meet a climate scientist, featuring Germain Sanders. Germain is an architect and artist from the Netherlands, and Jonas Althage again. And the day will be summarized by reflections from deer hunter Remy Kreze, cartopologist from the Netherlands. So I encourage you to stay, to participate in everything. Of course, also join the Semaphore as an Act of Change performance outside. It will be actually on the other side of Sergel's story. Yeah, I hope that you will have a nice afternoon. And without further ado, to start our program on water, cities and sustainability, please welcome Jonas Althage, expert on flood management in Stockholm. Jonas, do we need a flood management in this rising city?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Just clicking my way through this PowerPoint, I assume. My name is Jonas Althage. I work at Stockholm City as urban flood strategist. And you had the introduction to my session. I am actually located at the transport department, which has the strategic responsibility within Stockholm to manage cooperation and development within urban flood planning. I'm gonna crash this art day to talk about the law, which is very black and white and a bit boring, opposite of art, but it's a prerequisite that we need to just get a basic understanding for in order to describe why we work in the way we do. What's maybe a bit special about Swedish law is that it puts virtually all responsibility for managing risk to properties on the individual property owners. National, local council authorities have almost no responsibility in managing these types of risks, which in an international perspective can be very curious. And the only time we are actually able to do anything with risk mitigation, we have a legal responsibility not to benefit individual property owners, but do mitigation that serves a greater good. And there's no distinction between property owners. Like a house owner has the same tools available as a national government headquarters, for example. You can't force action upon anyone, so you're very equal in that sense. And then I'm going to just break down for me climate adaptation, what that actually means, because I think there's a difference to different people what that actually means. And from a council point of view, I split this into two main perspectives. And the first one here is obviously climate adaptation. There's a need because the climate is changing. So we need to adapt to a hotter world, more droughts, more floods. But we also need to manage critical risks that we have from climate events today or weather events such as flooding, droughts, etc. And of course, these risks will be exacerbated due to a changing climate. But the difference here is how these are actually, what processes these are connected to. I think a few things have fallen out here of my slide. But I'll walk you through it instead. What it's supposed to say here, the first bullet here is a city and infrastructure planning issue, which is a very slow process, which takes into account maybe a 30, 40, 50-year perspective on how should you develop your cities, how should you reorganize your transport structure, your water infrastructure in order to fit all purposes. And climate adaptation needs to be part of that, and it is, but it could be an even stronger part of that. I'm going to talk more about these critical risks, and the downside of these is that no one actually knows what the critical risks are during a flood, which is the things that I work with, for a very good and obvious reason, but it makes it hard to collaborate. And this is due to information security. We are not allowed as a council to know vulnerabilities, capacity of infrastructure systems that we do not own ourselves, because that's sensitive information that could be used by someone who wants to do harm to society. And this poses then the question, every property owner is responsible for managing their risks, but property owners cannot move water generally. Only landowners can move water. In this case, the council who owns most of the land in Stockholm. So we've got a bit of a conundrum here where we have critical service providers and infrastructure providers that have valuable systems and functions in society, who are not allowed to say exactly why they need to mitigate a risk, but they need to collaborate with us so we can help them to fix that risk. So how do you cooperate if this is the case? You can't say why, but you need to say why. See, this I've like scrambled a bit. That was my slide that was going to pop up very conveniently before. And this leads me into, if you're going to manage these risks, which no one can describe in detail, but we need to somehow manage anyway, we need to actually clarify what is the aim of flood management. And flood management is just risk management, basically, if you keep it a bit simple. And our process for flood management follows our process for risk management as a whole, regardless of the risk. Today we operate at 100% societal capacity. There's no rain, there's no storms, there are no floods. We have full functionality. But if we have a severe flood event, we're going to go down in capacity, illustrated by this red curve. We're not looking at eliminating risks within any sector. We're looking at having manageable consequences when something occurs. And what's a bit tricky for us is that we want to focus on not the direct damage, what house is flooded. We want to look at what is the total effect to society and citizens as a whole, because these latter phases, which linger much longer, where you have forced out investments and psychological effect on people, is a product of this damage that occur pretty much instantly, but can manifest itself for years after the actual event. So we want to look at where do we have the best benefit in working with risk mitigation. It is not always to manage that first very short stage. And luckily, we only need to do one single thing in order to work very efficiently with this, and that is to agree with everyone on what to do. And theoretically, it's easy. Practically, it's a little bit more tricky. And we need to be very open and that there are a myriad of different parameters and factors that affect different individuals, communities, organizations, decision makers that we have no control over. We cannot force anyone to do anything, but we want to work in collaboration to do where we have the greatest value to society. And this means we cannot force stakeholders to take action. We can only collaborate with them, provide them with good enough information so they are forced into action. So we're dependent on stakeholders, property owners, service providers to come to us and say that we have to prioritize this because this is critical for our operations. And then everyone is going to say my stuff is the most important most of the time. So we need to agree to prioritize exactly what then when we have, there's no shortage on damages that can occur, if we can say that at least. So what do we prioritize? You're not supposed to read this. This is just a little view of how we're planning to find out what is actually most important to do. And all the boxes here in red are it's easy to do. You just need time and you need a little bit of money to find out different factors that can affect different systems and different groups of people to different extents. What we cannot do is do any of the quantifying on what is actually most important, as long as we're talking about stuff that's outside direct economic damage. Direct economic damage can be fairly easy to assess, but we're not interested in just the blue box. We're interested in all the boxes, and all the yellow boxes here are these property owners, service providers, stakeholders. Only they can do these assessments. So this is the tree of analysis to determine where the most severe consequences lie that we're actually working according to. And we're working with quite a lot of stakeholders to do this. Fairly technical. I will get into hopefully a little bit more reasoning on how we can move on with this. But if we look then what we actually need to agree on, we've actually worked according to this process, and we're in collaboration now on 4 different critical asset sites with 4 different consortiums of stakeholders, because we have found that if we can complete 4 boxes, we have very high possibility of working in collaboration to start mitigating risks. And what we're looking for when we choose our projects, so to say, number 1 is to find these highly motivated stakeholders. And they can't just say, we really need this. I ask, what do you think how much can you pay to make this go away? And if they say 20,000 euros, I say you probably have to get to the back of the line, because 20,000 euros, if that's your limit, doesn't sound like an important issue to you. What we want them to find, and what we're helping them to find, is not severe consequences. We're trying to find what different stakeholders find completely unacceptable. And this is different to every stakeholder. It could be a pure economic aspect. It could be that you have a risk for fatalities. It could be that you have a museum with valuable cultural items stored in your basements. It can be whatever, but it needs to be an unacceptable risk that they're facing, because that gives us, as the council, according to the law, when we have to work for the greater good, intuitive knowledge that this is a case where we can put resources into it, especially if they are ready to invest. And what we do then is look at, is there a way that we think we can solve this issue according to the wishes of these stakeholders? And luckily for us, we work by Swedish standards in a rather big city. So we do not have a shortage on areas where we can probably tick these 4 boxes. So it's a comfortable, uncomfortable problem that we have. And looking then into, I mean, this is all built on very technical stuff like hydraulic flood models and feature manipulation engine tools that we build and yada, yada, yada. But being very technically adept isn't the most important thing we need to do. The most important thing we need to work with the communication. And with this slide, I've reached the pinnacle of my artistic expertise. I cannot go any further than this. Communication, I would say, is the single most important part of my job. And me being here today is not because I was asked, it's because I see this as a very valuable form of communication with a sector that I do not normally get in touch with, but has a great reach that I am not able to tap into otherwise. Because for me, distributing information is not just communication. This is what you can tick bare minimum boxes when you work within the city council. You need to motivate people, you need to talk to decision makers. Doesn't lead to virtually anything in this when you're driven by collaboration and common investments. We need to focus more through communication on building capacity in society, finding common ground, figuring out what is important, who has the same type of views. We need to group these individuals together and identify new processes, because this is a co-investment collaboration process that we do not have the framework for today, so we need to find new ways of doing this. And then we're moving further into engaging communities, finding out what is actually important, what's sense of urgency different groups or demographies have, for example. And by communicating a lot, it's a really big part of my work. The absolute best part for me with working a lot with communication with different groups is that I commonly found out that I am wrong. And this is the absolute best thing that can happen to me when I communicate with other groups and organizations, that I find out what I think is right is actually wrong. And that is extremely valuable to me, because then best case, I can start working in a direction that is correct to those groups of people, interpret their needs in a correct way. And I think that's overlooked opportunity with focusing a lot of communication, that that you build your own capacity, like way more than you build the capacity with the people that you're actually talking to. And why is then art important? I said I'll throw in culture here as well. Obviously, as a form of communication, and like it's a huge part of society. But to me, I do not look for technical experts. I do not need to work with technical experts. Technical experts are a sidekick that we need to get proper information once we've set the correct path to which we're working. Art has something else that promotes new ways of thinking, and it's the people that I think are connected to art and culture who have that type of mindset which art speaks to. Art can promote new ideas, and just by having a picture explain what I cannot do with 2 hours here. Something else that I think we're going to get into during the talk in the later session is that obviously art can transform a public space. And being at the transport department, when we work with flood mitigation, the number one question and prerequisite that we face is you need to add value to this space. You cannot do flood mitigation here unless you add value to the public space. And that's something that art can do. It can future-proof some physical assets and values that we put into the space. And you can use art and cultural heritage design to do this. Instead of building a street a certain way to divert a stream of water when it's flooding, that someone in 50 years' time might rebuild to lead another way, I've then lost all the function of my flood mitigation that I wanted to. This needs to be integrated into a city, work forever. So it cannot change unless you adapt to that change by doing flood protection in a different manner. Whereas art cements the functionality in a much more safer way than a common infrastructure project does. And this is something where I think we can co-invest and find collaboration. How do you promote art and cultural value into the space as part of climate adaptation? I'm going to leave this for the later talk, but I want to show one picture that was commissioned, an artwork that was commissioned to front the report of a national government investigation into how do we get better tools legally to work with climate adaptation. So they commissioned a piece of art to communicate their findings, and this is the artwork that they was a result from that commission project. So this is the front page of the national government, very, very technical report written by a judge in the environmental court. And for me, that's worked with this flooding and climate adaptation, very focused for a long time. This captures so many aspects and nuances that I think, sparks these new ideas and train of thoughts that we're looking to like harness in our greater work as well. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonas. It was a great start of our event. Does anyone have any question for Jonas? Yes.
Hi, Jonas. We discussed in the city of Stockholm yesterday, but I also want to pose the question to you. Do you think that this big Slassen project is the adequate response to any future developments and scenarios of what will be the climate change and then the effect on the waters in the lake and in the sea, Baltic Sea? Sorry to be
no, I think like we heard in the introduction, it's a temporary fix. and no one is under illusion that it will be nothing else than a temporary fix. With the prognosis looking onto climate change and sea level rise, it will inevitably need to be rebuilt if it's going to serve the purpose of securing for inland flooding and the saline water intrusion, drinking water contamination. It's there for a period of time, and then it's not going to work anymore, and then something else needs to be done. But that's the idea. Then do you move that drinking water plant that provides 2.5 million people with drinking water, rebuilds that infrastructure, or do you find another solution? So then you're into like this broader effect on societal function and finding out what is actually the best way forward, because the next thing is going to be a temporary fix as well. Sooner or later, you're going to have a mighty weird looking city if you're going to do these temporary fixes for 400 years.
I asked that question from the beginning. Do we really need flood strategy in Stockholm when this is actually a rising city?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone knows, but we do have a land rise in Sweden, which is for another 25 years, outpacing sea level rise. So every year now we get less risk of storm flooding from the sea. That's gonna change, of course, and the good thing with Slussen, it's that it's a one-point solution. It's very, very expensive, but it's located on one site, which protects everything. What we're looking into here are consequences and damages far exceeding those that Slussen protects from. We're talking mainly about cloudburst, which can happen basically anywhere in the city. And the damages that we've calculated very, very roughly far exceed those that Slussen is designed to protect against, because then you're protecting the shoreline, which is a very limited part of the towns and the cities. So working inside the city, you have to compete for space, you have to compete for putting in functions, you have to adapt to the city's need to develop and alter how it looks over a long period of time. So we have a much more intertwined mesh of different interests, which in a different way requires like a holistic view and like taking into account different stakeholders' needs, and will face in a lot of circumstances the need to disregard some risks and to abandon the idea of solving some problems in order to fix other risks. So that's why it's so important to actually motivate what is it that we need to focus on first. Because if we fix some risks in an area, we're going to move on to fixing the other severe risks in other area, and we're not coming back to that area to fix the level 3 risks, or say the less important ones. If you want to do that, then it's someone else that needs to invest in doing that. So it's very, very complex, whereas sea level lake you can fix with a one type solution in a very different manner, and you don't really need to look into abandoning some risks in the same sense. So it's complex for a different reason.
Thank you so much, Jonas. Okay, yes. So hello again. For those who were not here in the morning, my name is Elisabeth Papageorgiou, and I'm International Coordinator and Curator at Intercult, and I will be hosting the rest of the event. Small details back to the conference reality. I hope that all of you got your tags from my friend Jean outside here. No, inside. So you can scan and you can have the program of the day. I hope you also you answered your questions that are underneath. We will have a break around 2:45. And after the event, you're more than welcome to scan the QR codes that you will find by the doors to evaluate us. We really need that. Thank you so much. So next, please welcome Emma Stenström, Associate Professor at Stockholm Schools of Economics and Co-Director of Center for Arts, Business and Culture. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see if I can find my slides somewhere here too. Oh yeah, there it is. Perfect. So I think this was a very, very good setup for my little talk. I think we could use your example as a case in my business school. So I come from a business school just up the road. It's called Stockholm School of Economics, and it's kind of just to give you an idea, the prestigious business school in Sweden, highly ranked, very international. And I'm going to introduce to you very, very briefly a method that we are working with within that context and that we have done research around. And I will also put it in a context. When do we teach about this and how do we do it? And hopefully it will give you some inspiration. I think we share very much the belief that art and culture can help to shape resilient individuals, organizations, and societies. That's very much our belief as well. And we also believe a lot in that diversity of perspectives when we are tackling or mitigating the risks of big challenges. So it's nice to be in this setting with coming with a business school perspective, but meeting with other perspectives. So very briefly, I'll do a short introduction to what bubble hopping is. I'll talk a little bit about the research behind. I'll talk a little bit about the context, and I'll focus specifically on arts and culture in that context. Does that sound okay for you? And I usually have 10 weeks, and now I have like 20 minutes. So it will be a little bit of a challenge for me too. So what is bubble hopping? Well, first of all, I say that it started from a concern that we see a lot of bubbles in society. It could be filter bubbles, it could be social bubbles, where we get a lot of confirmation about our own perspectives, but we don't necessarily meet other perspectives. And as one of our founding fathers about to say, John Stuart Mill already said, he who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. So it's all about really broadening perspectives, understanding others, understanding other perspectives, getting out of your bubble and learning from each other. So that's really the simple way of talking about bubble hopping. And the problem is that we are a bit worried that we don't always do that. I saw some of you nodding that sometimes we tend to stay a little bit too much in our own bubbles. And just to make clear that bubbles are important, we need that kind of belonging. It's not about bubble popping, it's about bubble hopping. So it's not about not having your bubbles, because bubbles are important, but it's about getting some research-based skills, tools, developing capacities to also step out and bubble hop into other bubbles, not about popping the bubbles. And there's a lot of research around that, of course, that kind of methods that strengthen that can help to build resilience, both in ourselves as individuals, but also in societies and organizations. So that's where it comes from, really. So it started with that concern about the problem, and then together with colleagues, always together with colleagues, we started looking at what about if we bring some of those research-based skills capacities and try to, and of course we use students, we always do that in academia. We did it around about 1,000 students where we tested out different skills and methods and capacities to bubble hop. And by now we've had many thousand students doing it. And by now, I would say we also work much more in organizations, in municipalities, between sectors, between organizations, not only with students. It started with students because that's an easy kind of group to experiment with, and they're usually curious and happy to do so too. So it started off with students looking at what kind of skills worked, and then we put it together as like easy to use methods that could be used elsewhere. So what we do, so if, for example, if this was a course, if I had 10 weeks with you, which would be lovely, and you were my students, I would either put up a scenario, and Jonas, yours, that was like the perfect one. When you showed that slide, I was like, oh, can I borrow that slide from you? Because that could be perfect. If we had master students, they're a bit more mature, we could set up, please meet with different stakeholders, try to understand these different perspectives, exactly like you were pointing out. We've done that, for example, with the green transformation, with industries up north, making students actually meet with many, many different stakeholders and having stakeholder dialogues and understanding perspectives. So that's been one setup. Other times we do, especially with the bachelor students, because there are so many, and also because I'm curious myself, we say, okay, you pick a bubble yourself that you feel like you don't belong to, but that you are curious about. And then you jump. And as I said, we've had many thousand students jumping now, and they jump in all different directions. Could be politically, religiously, different, of course, backgrounds, different. They are already international, so that's not really, they can't just do that because they come from different continents, but professions, whatever, they jump in all different. Sometimes I tell them, can you please do something legal? Of course, they never listen. So, of course, they've also done a lot of, okay, I want to understand how you sell drugs and stuff like that. I'm always nervous, but they do whatever. They jump bubbles. But before they do that, of course, we train them a lot. And we tell them that they need to bring 3 principles with them. So the first one is curiosity, and is really crucial. Curiosity, I think curiosity is what creates safety many times. Curiosity is what makes us safe. If you meet somebody who's curious, it creates a lot of safety in a group, for example. So curiosity is number 1. The second one is always finding common ground. And here there's a lot of research around that. So yes, of course, this started with an idea that you are different somehow. But here you're meeting somebody and you can always find common ground and look for that and emphasize that common ground. What do you share? If for nothing else, you're both humans. And that's a very important part in the research too. And thirdly, debates are great. I love debates, but this is not the place for it. Here's dialogues. So that's the third one we do. So we do that. And before they actually do, either we set it up or they do it themselves, if they are the students. When we work in organization municipalities, it's usually set up, of course. But here, it can go anywhere. We always practice skills before. Always, and they are useful in other settings as well. So practicing skills before. And you can think about it yourself, like, when did you connect with somebody who had a very different point of view? Can you think about a person, but that you actually felt connection with somehow, when you understood a little bit better? It's not about changing, it's just about understanding and making yourself understood. Can you think about somebody you met? You don't need to share, so you can just think about it yourself. And you can think about, was it something that helped you in that meeting? Was it something that helped you in that meeting? And of course, there are many, many, many skills there we could practice. So we'll do things like intellectual humility. We'll practice a lot of listening, sharing personal stories, asking questions, body language. We'll practice breathing, not being angry, creating nice atmospheres, etc., etc. There are many, many skills we can practice first. And they are useful, as I said, otherwise too. And if you want to do it yourself or help others do it, there are many resources. I mean, when we talk about bubble hopping, that's just one of many, many similar methods all around the world, I'll say. And many organizations working in a similar manner, trying to find ways to bridge, because it's all about bridging, really. And here are some of them, and you can find great resources there. And of course, there's a lot of research behind. As I said, I'm going to go very fast here. It's better to have some time for questions. So some of the research that we are building the method on is social identities. When I talk about bubbles, I really talk about social identities and social identity theory, which very, very simplified means that we all belong to many bubbles. We all have multiple identities. They're dynamic, and that's something that's important with it. They can actually change. We can always find like bigger shared identities. But they do also form us a lot, form our values, behaviors, taste. So they're important to understand, but also possible actually to change, which is nice with them. We look at specific studies. Here, for example, there are many, many American ones of many reasons, but one being that it's perhaps the place where we tend to think about when we talk about affective polarization and those things that are behind this kind of methods and what people are really trying to bridge. So here, for example, is a big study done on many or 30,000 people, either registered at either Democrats or Republicans. Typical kind of setup for a study. And looking at what kind of interventions can help to understand each other's perspective a little bit more. And we're talking Democrats and Republicans here. Big, big study. And what's good about it, perhaps, is that fairly easy interventions can actually help. Just that one I mentioned, looking for common ground, for example. Always finding something you're sharing and emphasizing that can help understand each other a little bit better. For everyone, no. In this study, they say that the extreme ends doesn't help. We're talking about perhaps the 80% in the middle, but not the ones that are extremists at either end. But for many people, some very simple interventions can help understand each other a little bit better. So that's the kind of research that's interesting, of course. And then since we are in a business school, we do also talk about social capital, and we're talking about different kind of social capital, and we see a lot of dividing today. So if you want to build resilience, it's better to work with both bonding, that's being in your bubbles, that they are important, but also bridging between bubbles and bridging between groups. And many times, that's where the worry is, that we perhaps do not create enough bridging social capital. And that's what bubble hopping is about. How do we create that bridging social capital? Now, of course, we do this in a specific context. So our context, so when we bring this into the business school, and it's mandatory for all bachelor students and for one of the master tracks or masters or international master. And we do that in the context of sustainability, or what we call global challenges. Can't say sustainability anymore. You know that? It's such a wording now in the business school that it's like you say sustainability and nobody will come to your class. Kind of, I'm exaggerating, but it's been a big change recently here. We talk about global challenges. And these are young people, of course, and of course you see a lot of global challenges in many ways. That's where we bring it in. So it's usually like in that kind of sustainability context, global challenges, global citizenship, that kind of context. Could also be leadership and organizations, but usually more in the sustainability context. And when we work with that, we always work with 3 perspectives. So we work with the inner perspective, with self-awareness. We work with the other, with relationships, and we work with the outer. System awareness, system thinking. And it's important, I think, that we do always bring in these 3 perspectives. While the bubble hopping tends to be in perhaps more in the other, how do we relate to each other? Sometimes we call it the me-we world, and the importance of really kind of moving between me-we world. But the bubble hopping comes in usually at the we, the relationships between us, but it needs the other 2 for sure. And we also do it in a pedagogical context where it used to be that we said we're going to teach students to leave school with a business mindset or understand business and economics. Now we have a pedagogical mission saying that, of course, they need to have a fact and science-based mindset, always. But on top of that, we also want our students to leave school reflective and self-aware, empathic and culturally literate, entrepreneurial and responsible. So the 3 is really a core here, the whole pedagogical mission. How can we make our students or participants in other programs actually become more free thinking, understanding more, and having that broader perspective? And that's where the arts come in. So we have a big art initiative. We commission artists to do our classrooms. So we teach in art classrooms these days. We have art collection. We collaborate with several institutions. We show, for example, art on a big screen in the main auditorium or in the main hall. We have art everywhere, in every corridor, everywhere in the school. It really is infusing the whole building and atmosphere. We have art talks more or less every week, artists coming in talking about art. We have a literary agenda where everybody now reads, or not everybody, but 300 out of our 1,700 students read novels and discuss together, and many other things, of course. And we do sometimes also integrate that into our teaching. Our president always says this is the itching powder of the business school. This is where the art is really where they get new perspectives, where we work with imagination, where we add all the senses, where we make them free in that way. And of course, it's also part of the same courses when I teach sustainability and global citizenship and becoming a citizen. Of course, the arts become a very important part of the courses as well. So here, for example, is an artist duo from Sweden that did a very typical installation, I'd say, for a course like this. So they made an installation, a lock-in. This is how much they weigh, as much as we spend in a certain time period. And then they locked us in as teachers. So we couldn't leave. We were locked in and we had to stand outside school and answer questions for anybody who passed by. So that's a typical kind of installation where art comes into the teaching. Another one, and I'm soon going to end, another one is another Swedish artist who's done an installation called Awakening, but everybody at school called it Overflow. And there was a big kind of discussion, but it's also discussion around consumer society, capitalism, all these things we do want them to question too. So when we bring in the arts, we do it in order, in a way it's a bubble hopping in itself, and it's in the same kind of context. We do want to have new perspectives, criticality, we want to have questioning, we want to have that kind of broadening that comes, I think, from both arts and culture addressing similar questions, but also from the bubble hopping, meeting very different perspectives. That's it. Very brief, 10 weeks in 25 minutes.
Where can I apply? Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for Emma? Nope. Yes.
Summer school, we should. We actually do. We organize summer school, but I'm not sure. It's for people. We'd organize it for people with non-academic backgrounds that come from non-academic backgrounds and live in some of what you can call them many things, but suburbs outside the big cities. Rosengård outside Malmö, for example. Very talented students. We organize summer schools for them, but we should perhaps do it for others as well. Found a mic. That's
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, I got one. Since you're a business school, I was wondering, bringing in the artist and the imagination, would you consider imagination a skill or a mindset?
Skill or a mindset? Well, I think it's both in a way. Huh? I think it's a skill in one way, and I'm a bit worried about the deficit in that skill sometimes. I was just talking to a colleague who's writing a book about imagination now, and I think it's not always valued enough, and it's not always trained enough, especially not in the setting I'm in. So that sense, I think we could train it more, but of course it's a mindset too.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is, are we good at bubble hopping in Sweden? Or is the ability to bubble hop connected to where you live, or when you are born, where your I don't know, home?
I love that question. And I'm lucky enough to have students from 5 continents in a classroom, so we can always have that discussion. And I think some of them, and I love to refer to my students because they are my best teachers, some of them would say that we are probably good in certain ways. I think the Nordic model is built very much on it, that we should collaborate between sectors and we should try to find some kind of consensus and move forward. So there's in one way, yes, but we're super bad compared to many of my students' home countries at connecting with strangers on the street, for example, or chit-chatting. So they could be in different ways, I think. There's another one. Oh, I love questions. Thank you.
Sorry, I came late, so I don't know if you have already addressed this, but I wonder, is there any way that one can measure the impact of the arts on, or bubble hopping on our students?
Measure the impact of art as the typical question for many of my colleagues, and I come from that area myself, the field of arts from the beginning. And I would say that many of us also shy away a little bit for that, because we also worry about the consequences, because there are so many things that are not measurable that we might lose if we use very simple measurements. So the impact is always difficult to measure. And there are many qualities that are non-measurable, but they are still very, very important. So I'd say most of my colleagues would shy away a little bit from that question. Does it matter? Does it mean that we don't? I think sometimes we really, I mean, I could talk forever about it, so you shouldn't get me started. But so, for example, we do measure a little bit, I have to admit. So, because we want to publish papers, otherwise we get fired. So one thing, for example, is that, well, you need to do randomized control trials and be pretty clear about if they're going to believe in you. So we did that, and I have other colleagues that have done it too. And we've seen the same thing. We compared arts-based classes with more traditional classes. So one thing, I was working with contemporary circus. So one of the things we did was that we did a workshop that was exactly as long, same topics. One was completely circus-based, arts-based, and the other one was traditional cognitive. The short story here is that when we looked at evaluations, and this is similar in other research, they were lower for the arts-based. People preferred the traditional cognitive one, but when we looked at the learnings, it was the opposite. They had learned more in the arts-based workshop. It was more integrated. It was more of what we try to strive for, not just memorizing some concepts. So if we're looking for learning, I say we can see a lot of really good effects from the arts-based. If we're looking for simple evaluations, no. That was a very simplified answer, but it's a very interesting topic. Thanks for asking question.
Thank you so much. I don't think we have time for more questions. Sorry. Thank you so much, Emma. It was really inspiring. And now I will do your words action, and I will hop into another bubble, and I will go to art from academia. And now I would like to welcome Maria Andrea Robitaille, a researcher, circus artist, and artistic director of Circus Circor for Semaphores as an Act of Change. Welcome. Have a little installation here.
Thank you. Hello. Hello. Yes. Good afternoon. For this presentation, I thought that I'm going to introduce a lecture and a workshop that has been generated through my participation in a residency within the project Turning the Tide, organized by Intercult, almost 1 year ago already. And the title for this is Hope in Motion. And it is a workshop that, the workshop that accompanied this, that we will not necessarily do today, is about making flag together and walking and moving with flags. But here's the little lecture. And I will start with the title of the lecture, which is Hope. And hope is a really vague concept in a way. It's a strong one, but it's a really vague one, like freedom. Freedom for who and freedom of what? So hoping for what and who gets to hope? And in this context, I'm using hope, the term hope, as a driving force, as a way of acting. So action is important in this term, and as a force that lead us to move, to act, and to respond, and to exert our response ability, or our ability to respond. And the title is Hope in Motion. And literally, having hope in movement, that movement has the capacity of change, of transforming urban design, that has the possibility to transform the people and the environment, and even the idea how we are conceptualizing reality. And movement, hope in motion, also as a hope in the potential of moving together. So hope in motion and hope in motion, if you follow me. Let's see here if this can work. Yes. So I was introduced as a circus artist. I'm an old one. I still identify as an acrobat. And often even though I am a circus performer, I have been doing circus performance to earn a living. I have been teaching circus, and now I'm the artistic director of a Swedish circus called Cirkus Cirkör. I also see circus as a metaphor, and I often refer to circus as the planet Earth. And that in a circus, everything, or on the planet Earth, everything is interrelated and interconnected. It's relational. If we do something, it will affect someone else. It will affect our environment. And the good things with this metaphor with the circus, it is that in circus, you can see in a radical manner, in a physical manner, what are those interrelation and what are the consequence. For example, if someone is on a trapeze and I'm holding a rope that hold the person on the trapeze, if the person fall, I have to hold on. And if I let go, the person can fall and injured. And also in a circus, we are looking at something that is wonderful, like we would be doing in a sunset, for example. And I've just spent 5 years as a PhD candidate at Stockholm University of the Arts. And I've been reflecting a lot with the context in which we are all living and the challenges that we are facing. I've been thinking of that we have been abandoning the circus tent, that we often don't really engage in nurturing the circus tent as it should. And it actually happened for real once in my life. I was in Malmö and we were touring with a circus tent, and we were in a meeting somewhere else in a school. And we were talking about how we would organize the next part of the tour and what show we wanted to do. We were talking a lot about the future, but the present was happening in the tent, and someone knocked on the door and said, "The tent is blowing away, the tent is blowing away." And it felt, oops, it's, oh, I cannot do this here. Sorry. The filming is not working. Well, imagine this tent blowing up. There's a lot of wind, and a tent that blows up is quite spectacular in itself. And we had to go and hold on all the beams of the tent. If not, the tent would have fly away. So as part of my PhD, I have been reflecting on the specificity of circus and their potential, of the circus arts, and their potential and relevancy for meeting the challenge that we are facing today. we were talking a little bit about the measurability and the value of arts. And I've been reflecting on what it is that circus does and what it is that can be useful. There's a lot of skills, for example, to assess risk and to find creative solution, partnership, collaboration, etc., etc. And I have been also reflecting on the art of circus, going on stage and showing incredible virtuosities and skills where people would applaud and actually measure how many salto, how many balls, and that the virtuosity is becoming the main factor of circus arts. While my thesis in my thesis, I was interested in what other type of virtuosity the circus artist is developing and what other type of skills than the discipline circus skills themselves are we developing as ability. And I started to situate the circus artist as a semaphore, as a human semaphore. We were talking about communication earlier, and I was reflecting on what type of communication it is when we do a triple salto. What are we communicating? And I started to get nerdy about the semaphore the semaphore in itself. And that's also where the beginning of the residency, or the topic of the residency with Intercult. You have seen the flag here. I started to work with these pieces of foils. You see them there. They are very loaded politically, and they are mesmerizing and very spectacular material. So I've been starting to work with this material that is very fragile, that one has to care for. If not, it's going to rip really easily. And start to see how my virtuosity will change by working with a non-circus objects or material, and one that require a lot of care, but that has a lot of symbolism. So a semaphore, if you're not familiar with the word, it is, here you have the semaphore alphabet, which you use for communicating for boats or airplane landing, for example. Each sign has a letter. Yes. Closer to us, here in Sweden, we have a system, a network of semaphore on the Baltic Sea. And if you want the boat to come and pick you up, then you would rise a part of the semaphore so that the boat would come and pick you up. So you have to notice this next time you will take a spin on the Baltic. And this is also a semaphore. It's a satellite. It's very powerful. We as humans has developed so much knowledge. Sometimes we wonder how to use the knowledge and how come we don't better know how to use it collectively. But we have semaphore that are so powerful, and yet we don't know necessarily how to communicate or what to communicate. And semaphore has been in the imagination for a long time. In literature, the Three Kings was following the star for the birth of a guy named Jesus, I think. And we also have literature on the art of communicating through smoke signals. Here is in the Netherlands at the beginning of the 18th century. It's a coastal semaphore. And to me, it really looked like a circus apparatus, like a pole. And it's completely mechanical. And it will tell the weather. It will maybe prevent that there is danger at the coast, or tell boats that they are able to come to port. And here, closer to us in Gärdet, not so far from here, is a replica of a semaphore that has been invented by Abraham Niklas Eldenkrantz. He was a poet, but he was also the right hand of Gustav III. And he was experimenting with the optical telegraph. And Sweden was the second country in the world after France to have this type of communication system. And Sweden beat the French. This was 10 times faster. And it's also, in a way, the ancestor of the binary system, computing system. And here is another type of artistic interpretation of moving with or communicating through sign and signals. And this, in here, I'm writing hope with a piece of foil. And now I'm going to do an acrobatic jump. So I'm jumping to Clown Kelly. He's a hobo. He's a migrant worker, and he represents the homeless and the people that were working on the train track across America. And he's one of the first clown that he's not a happy clown and a beautiful red-nosed clown. He was really dirty and tired. And here he was preparing for his act on July 6, 1944, in a small town in Connecticut, in Hartford. And this is a Ringling Brothers circus. It's a big circus. There's 3 tents. There is 3 shows going in the same time. There were 6,000 people in the audience. And the show was 20 minutes in when the flames started near the entrance of the big top. And it was the Great Wallenda's act that was going to start. And at this time, I hope I can get this. And at this time, when this happened, the band started to play this. In this event, there is 160 people that died, and there were 700 injured. There is a little girl that were never found. The men's I was at war, so there were a lot of kids and a lot of women in the audience. And this is Clown Kelly. And this is a real picture. There was one person. We didn't have those one in this time. And one person, his name is Ralph Emerson. He had a camera and he took this picture. And it's quite a famous picture of Clown Kelly. He had this act, you know, you maybe have had this when the clown is taking a bucket and then they come close to the audience and then they will throw water and the audience gets scared. And at one point they throw it and it's confettis. So that was his act. And now you have him outside the tent with a real bucket of water trying to help to put down the fire. And this song that I have been putting on, it is a song that is a signal for code. This you would never use, or you should not hear it in any tent or theater. At the time, it was only used to tell the crew that we need to evacuate. So you would never, it's a happy song that doesn't make people anxious, and that, but the crew knows it's time to evacuate. So it's a sign, it's a code for trouble, time to evacuate. So I'm asking, what is our code for trouble? And if we have a code and we hear this code, where would we go? And how we would go where we want to go? What are we standing for together? And this idea with walking and moving with flag is a way for us to learn to have a time where we can move together without having any identity question, without having to resolve a problem, without having to experience a traumatic disaster. We have this opportunity and this privilege here, but maybe if we learn how to work together in other ways than through text and through rationality, but rather through a way to organic moving and organization, maybe we develop a skill that is important for us and for the future. Thank you. So now I invite you to take a walk with me. That would mean that I'm a choreographer. I have a PhD in choreography. So that would mean that we would rise up and go take a jacket, come take a flag, and then you would follow me. We will go for a 10, 15 minutes walk, not more. I think it's good for everyone. And we will come back here together.